All right, Lisa, I'm gonna have to take a look inside your shoes real quick. I'm gonna turn my back on you real quick, Lisa. Don't. Oh no, officer.
You're parked on a disabled spot. If you want to go ahead,
No, I'm not.
go ahead and call the police.
Oh my God, he didn't do any damage. It's
Go.
fucking
Keep it moving, woman. You're parked on a disabled spot, though. There you are. Look.
Imagine having to deal with individuals like this on a daily basis. Certainly being a law enforcement officer is a difficult and stressful job. On today's video, we're not trying to throw dirt on law enforcement in general. We're just going to talk about the top 10 police departments in Florida that have the worst reputation. Certainly nobody would want to live in a world where we don't have law enforcement. Their presence should make us feel safe. However, there's a few agencies in Florida that their presence feels more like an irritation than a benefit to have them around. On today's video, we're going to talk about the top 10 police departments in Florida that have the worst reputation. Does that mean that every single police officer that works for these departments is an evil person? Absolutely not. But these are police departments that have gained a bad reputation, mostly for police profiling, lack of due process, and for irritating people needlessly. Other police departments have gained a reputation for just finding people any chance they get to generate revenue. So these are the top 10 police departments in Florida that have the worst reputation. So you're probably wondering, why even make a video like this? Well, this video does serve a purpose, and the purpose is to inform the general public of which police departments have the worst reputation. See, today, misinformation to get people to move to certain areas is prevalent, and some of these police departments have been engaging in propaganda to make themselves seem like they're the greatest police departments on the face of the earth, but in reality, they have a bad reputation with their community. And thus, the purpose of today's video is to educate the public in general on which police departments have the worst reputation, so we can understand that if somebody should be talking about law and order, it shouldn't be the people that have the worst reputation in the state. If you're moving to the state of Florida, you have the right to know which police departments have the best and worst reputation. And this is information that should be available to the public to help them determine where they want to live in the state of Florida and why. So the purpose of today's information, again, is not to downgrade law enforcement. On the contrary, we want to appreciate the work that they do. Most of us wouldn't want to do their job. Just imagine being a white police officer and having an angry black woman screaming at you that you're trying to get her to run you over so you can arrest her for running her. I mean, it's ridiculous. But this is the type of things that law enforcement have to deal with on a daily basis. Their work is definitely appreciated, but the public does have a right to know which police departments have the worst reputation and specifically why. Let's get into it. Number 1 is Miami Beach. This shouldn't be surprising to you if you live in Florida. Here's a police department that looks the other way while people fight and smoke weed in public, but will not hesitate to give you a ticket for parking incorrectly. The hypocrisy of sitting there and just writing tickets nonstop for people parking incorrectly. As soon as you park incorrectly, you're getting pulled over and you're getting a ticket in Miami Beach. However, you got people fighting, you got people engaging in drug activities, and the law enforcement there just looks the other way on all this criminal activity, all this serious crime. They overlook the fighting, they overlook the weed smoking, and all of the illegal things that are happening in Miami Beach, but they will not hesitate to give you a ticket for parking incorrectly. This has given the Miami Beach Police Department a seriously bad reputation, and most people that go to Miami Beach aren't exactly thrilled to see law enforcement's presence. It's almost like they're there for decoration for serious crimes, and it's serious work when somebody parks improperly. The purpose of tickets and fines is to punish you for engaging in dangerous activity that puts society in general in danger. But when people are trying to do practical things and they get punished for it, it leaves a bad taste in people's mouths. And the Miami Police Department has just gained a reputation of caring about nothing more than generating revenues by giving people tickets at any expense, while more serious offenses are not considered a problem since, towards dollars. So it's very hypocritical. People don't like it. And without a doubt, the Miami Police Department is one of those police departments that just seems to have a very bad reputation, understandably. Number 2 is Bradford County, Florida. If your entire city and county is known for nothing more than being a giant speed trap, you can't expect people to have any respect for law enforcement there. In the case of Bradford County, it seems like when you mention Stark, Florida or Bradford County, the first thing that people say, oh, That's a speed trap town. 301 goes across the state of Florida and provides a very essential route between Tampa and Jacksonville. And unfortunately, along this route, you'll find tourist trap towns. And by tourist trap, we mean tourist speed trap. If you're unfamiliar with this area, you better get familiar quickly with the speed limit signs. They're purposely made to be confusing. And law enforcement here has a reputation of nothing more than milking anybody passing by, unfamiliar with how greedy the people in this county have become. They see it almost as an extortion racket of just confusing people driving through their towns with very confusing and changing speed limits that all result in one single thing: this county keeping your money. It's very unfortunate that this is the only thing this area is known for, and well, if you make a name for yourself, there you go. Crea fama y acuéstate a dormir. In other words, create fame for yourself and everybody already knows what you're known for. Bradford County, Florida is known as nothing more than a speed trap town. And unfortunately, there it is. They drop it to 45 and this is just what they're known for. And it's sad. Clearly, safety isn't the concern here. It's generating profits for the county municipalities at the expense of unbeknownst travelers through their county. That almost sounds like an extortion racket. Definitely not something you should be known for. Number 3, St. Johns County. This county has made an infamous reputation for being a police profiling county. Now, St. Johns County currently has the lowest crime rates of any county in Florida. I've traveled all across America, almost 40 states, and it's interesting that I've never got pulled over anywhere outside of my home base, but I have got pulled over in St. Johns County. This is a speed trap that's pretty well hidden, and actually, if you're coming off the back street, you can't see the school sign because this is an African-American neighborhood. And what the St. Johns County has a reputation for doing has been profiling African-American and Hispanic communities. In fact, recently, they were involved in a national case. Everybody was watching this. A police officer had a heart attack while needlessly beating a Guatemalan immigrant who, one, was doing nothing at all wrong. He was outside of a hotel. He apparently had the right to be here because he had some type of work visa. Well, literally, the guy was doing absolutely nothing wrong. The police officer saw him, noticed that he was Guatemalan, and went on to police profile him. In the act of beating and trying to detain this person who was on the phone with his mother and was doing absolutely nothing wrong, he wasn't trespassing. He was outside of a hotel he paid for. He had all the right to be there. Nobody had made a police complaint. This police officer just decided to pick on this guy because he was Guatemalan in St. Johns County. Well, it turns out that the police officer had a heart attack and died. He was so excited in his fanatical endeavor to beat the crap out of a Guatemalan that he gave himself a heart attack and died. Well, the St. John's Police Department tried to arrest the person for manslaughter, saying that he caused the death of this police officer when nobody had called him. He wasn't trespassing. He was a guest at a hotel. He had all the right to be there. Eventually, it took a while, but the St. John's Police Department did have to drop the charges and let this innocent guy go, and now they're being sued by the family with reason. St. John's Police Department was shameless in that instead of quickly investigating what happened and making a right decision, they let this case prolong, taking sides with the person who did the wrong thing, their police officer. Instead of condemning the actions of this police officer for clearly doing police profiling, they decided to take sides with the officer and try to press charges on somebody who had done nothing wrong. A quick evaluation of this case: they should have done the right thing from the beginning, but again, the St. John's Police Department has a reputation for police profiling, and they definitely moved wrong with the handling of that case. And that case is only a taste of the things that happen in St. Johns County. St. Johns County simply has a reputation of being a police profiling, almost a police sundown town. Being right next to Jacksonville, the black people in Jacksonville are afraid to go to St. Johns County because they know that law enforcement there and how they behave, the reputation that they've created for themselves. So that's the situation in St. Johns County, Florida, and it's a well-deserved reputation. This isn't disputable. Everybody in Jacksonville knows it, and of course, we've seen cases like the infamous case about the Guatemalan worker that highlight that this county is on some deep South crap. And the reputation that this county has, I've experienced it myself. Again, it's possibly the only place I've ever been pulled over outside of my home basis while traveling. It just goes to show that the police here are just relentlessly bothering and irritating people, trying to keep the lowest crime rates in Florida, but working outside of due process by profiling people. And that's not the way law enforcement works in the year 2024. They have a bad reputation, and it seems like law enforcement there stands behind that, because after all, it seems like that's what the people of St. Johns County want. They want to keep the black population in Jacksonville out of their county, and they're making it a point on purpose. That's the reputation they want. Law enforcement's job is to strike fear into criminals, not minorities. If you're a law-abiding citizen, you shouldn't be afraid of the law. But if you're in St. Johns County, you better take a look at your skin tone first. And sadly, their handling of the situation with the Guatemalan immigrant just shows that they're more interested in pleasing the people in their county that want this police profiling than they are about due process. Due process means that they should have elaborated this case and known that the police officer needlessly irritated this person, had no reason to bother this person, yet they stood behind the police officer and arrested somebody innocent simply because the person, well, was an immigrant. Very embarrassing, and this is the reputation that this county has forged for itself. Also, they're known for over-patrolling African-American neighborhoods. In the case of me getting pulled over, I was doing a video on the African-American community in St. Augustine, Florida, and that's where I got pulled over. It seems that over-patrolling specific districts that are black, even though when crime there isn't the worst, is one of the practices along the Florida East Coast, and St. Johns County isn't the only one guilty for doing this. Number 4 is the Melbourne Police Department. If you want to find a place that is doing things wrong, look no further than Melbourne County. They have a small African-American community, and they are relentlessly patrolling this area. They've even installed speed monitoring devices so they can pull over just about anybody driving through this area. Interestingly enough, Melbourne is in Brevard County, a county that has one of the highest drug overdose death rates in Florida. And the white population is dying from drug overdoses at a rate 2 times higher than the black population. And if you're familiar with Melbourne, the black community here isn't the core of the crime problem. In other words, not only does Melbourne profile African American communities and make living there almost impossible, I've talked to people that live here in Melbourne, and they tell me they've even moved out of the city or considered moving out because law enforcement pressure is so heavy on their community. I talked to a black and white couple, interracial couple, and they're telling me that the cops pull them over all the time and ask them if they're engaging in drug transactions because they're an interracial couple. Interestingly enough, the core of the drug addiction crisis in Melbourne, Florida is not the African American community, it's the white community. But the white community runs with complete impunity, while the African American community gets scrutinized needlessly constantly, despite the fact that it's the white community that's dealing with a drug addiction problem, with drug overdose death rates among the white population being 2 times higher than the African American community. It's really the white community they should be patrolling, but they relentlessly bother the African Americans. Putting all these police resources in a neighborhood where they're not needed for a purpose that is not essential means that the people who are actually engaging in drug activity, well, the cops aren't worried about them. The cops are worried about profiling a community of hardworking people. And as you can see here, they even install these speed monitors. Basically, if you're driving through the black community here, the cops pretty much have the ability to pull you over because they have implemented so much technology to be able to excuse the fact of their unwarranted searches. And that's basically what they do. They nonstop target the African American community while the white community is suffering from a drug overdose crisis. It's shameful and it's embarrassing, and it's fairly noticeable. I went to Melbourne like I go to any other city in the United States, and I just noticed how much police presence there is in this African American community. But as I explored the Melbourne area, I realized that this isn't the most crime-ridden area. It's just the most targeted area. It's shameful, it's embarrassing, and unfortunately, this is a problem all up and along the Florida Northeast Coast, an area known for police profiling, bothering people that are just living their normal lives, while the areas that actually have the worst drug addiction, they get a pass because they're white. You know, if this county was exceptional and this city of Melbourne was exceptional when it came to crime, I could almost understand it. But Brevard County has one of the highest drug overdose death rates in the entire state of Florida, so obviously it's not working very well. It's shameless, it's embarrassing, and to people that go to Melbourne the first time, you may notice that there's a lot of police profiling here, targeting specific communities, making the lives of the people that live there feel like they're in a prison when they're really not. I also did some work with the homeless in the Melbourne area, and the homeless people there tell me that the cops dictate where they can and can't live, and that the cops don't let them leave certain areas. If they leave certain areas, then they're working outside of due process to arrest the homeless people and forcing them to live exactly where they want. This is lack of due process. The law enforcement really can't do that. But again, it seems like law enforcement here does whatever they want, whether you're homeless or black. It just seems like law enforcement here doesn't see everybody as equal. They're working outside of due process, and they're implementing practices that are clearly discriminatory. It's an embarrassing situation for Melbourne. It's a beautiful city with beautiful beaches, and unfortunately, it's also a place that has a lot of things that need to work out. If they believe that all these practices are making their community a safer place, it's not. Again, Brevard County is the heart of some of Florida's worst drug addiction crisis. Number 5 is Brevard County, Florida. Basically, the area surrounding Melbourne, Florida. This is an area that has a reputation of not dealing with the homeless population with due process, police profiling, and many of the other police mispractices that we've talked about in today's video are all common along the east coast of Florida. Brevard County encompasses the Melbourne area all the way up to Titusville and close to Cape Canaveral. This is the area of the east coast of Florida where most of the police departments have been implementing bad practices for a long time, and well, Brevard County is right in the heart of that. Many of the people here complain that law enforcement works outside of due process many times. Specifically, the more vulnerable people like the homeless population tell me that they're terrified of law enforcement because they simply do not respect due process. And this county has a reputation of telling people that they're a great place to live. You may have seen their police officers during those police press conferences that law enforcement in Florida loves to make, promoting their county, saying that everything there is safe and under control. But in reality, Brevard County is a complete mess. Like I've said already, they're known for having some of the highest drug overdose rates in the state of Florida. So it's definitely a mess in Brevard County, but they want to portray something else to the media. Number 6 is Lee County, Florida. If you live in Florida, you knew this was going to be on the list. This county has a horrendous reputation. Various scandals that today have made national headlines, from police officers being arrested to just internal affair issues. This county seems to be plagued with bad police officers. In the case of Lee County, Florida, recently one of their police officers was arrested. Get this. He was pulling over migrants and extorting them and stealing money from them. Unfortunately, this is a common practice in Lee County, Florida, and the local residents know that if you're illegal and you get pulled over in this county, you better have the title in the glove box or a few $1,000s cash ready to go, because if a Lee County police officer pulls you over and you're illegal, you're not going to jail, you're going to get extorted. I lived in Lehigh Acres, Florida, the area of Buckingham. This area has a lot of police people that live there. Most of them are great neighbors who mind their own business, but it also is noteworthy that many of the teenage delinquency that, the people that are doing the most bad stuff happen to be the children of police officers, and they always get a pass because daddy's a cop. Really, there wouldn't be enough time on today's video to go about all the offenses that the Lee County Sheriff's Office has done against their community, but they've gained a bad reputation. A reputation of extorting the community, going after migrants, and just like in Brevard County, it's had very bad consequences for their community. The North Fort Myers area, which is patrolled by the Lee County Sheriff's Office, now has made so many overdose deaths that Lee County has the highest drug overdose death rate in all of Southwest Florida. But the Lee County Sheriff's Office turns a blind eye to the drug dealing, addiction, and crime that happens in this district because it's predominantly a white area. The overdoses are so high now in this area that it drags down the entire county, bringing it to the position, like I said, of the highest drug overdose rate in all of Southwest Florida. Things have been deteriorating in Lee County, Florida, and all the while, as things get worse and the county gets more crime-ridden than ever, the Sheriff's Office spokespeople want to tell the world that Lee County, Florida is a great place and that, they're on the news every single day and they're paying for promotion, trying to convince people that Lee County, Florida is a safe place they should move to. Bless their heart, how far from reality. It's very hypocritical that a county that has the highest crime rates and highest drug overdose rates in all of Southwest Florida wants to make commercials telling people that this is the place they need to move to. It's very deceiving, and unfortunately many people believe this rhetoric and they move to this county only to later find out that it's a crime-infested crap hole and that law enforcement here is more interested in who they can extort than actually helping catch criminals. This has led to a situation where neighborhoods like North Fort Myers have become completely lawless places. Yet law enforcement refuses to target these neighborhoods because they're predominantly white areas. If you've ever been in North Fort Myers, you may have noticed that there's homeless people nodding out, people passed out on the sidewalks. Crime, homelessness, and addiction is just part of life here, and it's very hypocritical that anybody should claim that they're doing a good job when you see the streets of North Fort Myers that are patrolled by Lee County Sheriff's Office. Like you see here, people panhandling, it's just normal. These counties are struggling severely, and the disrespect and hypocrisy of going out there and saying that you're doing a good job is deceitful, and really it's caught the attention of a lot of people in Florida who realize, hey, this isn't exactly the place you want to move to in Florida. Interestingly, right next to Lee County, Florida, in the same metropolitan area is Collier County. Collier County has overdose death rates that are nearly half of Lee County's. Their homicide rate is nearly half of Lee County. It's the second safest county in the state of Florida, right next door to Lee County. Half the crime rate, second safest county in Florida. Perhaps you've never seen Collier County Sheriff Kevin Rembosk go on there and make the claims that the Lee County Sheriff's Office makes. It's interesting, though, that a county that's safe doesn't make those claims, but a county that's overrun with homelessness, crime, and addiction wants to claim that they're the greatest place on earth. But people are catching on to it, and they're realizing that the propaganda that's being spewed out by the spokespeople of this county is misleading and that the county is suffering greatly. Instead of addressing the fact that Lee County has become crime-ridden, they would rather brag about the great job they're doing. And it's this, if you don't admit, if you don't accept, if you don't even address the problem your county's facing, how can Lee County become a better, safer place when the white people can drug deal out in the open and do whatever they want because they're white, but let a Hispanic person drive on their way home from work, get pulled over, and be extorted by a police officer? It's ridiculous what's happening in this county, and the results are visible. And I think what's interesting about Lee County is if you ask a white person what they think about the sheriff's office, they speak volumes. But if you ask a Hispanic or a black person what they think, they're going to tell you they're scared. So it's a mixed perception based on race because nobody's treated equally here. Lee County, Florida should focus less on promoting how great of a job they're doing and actually doing their job. Collier County, Florida, next door, is very safe, and you've never heard their sheriff bragging about anything. He's not busy doing Facebook posts. He's busy doing his job. Hey, did you guys know that Southwest Florida is the home of snitching? Yes, most of the rappers down here have a reputation of being snitches. All over the internet, you hear people talking about all the snitching that happens in Lee County, Florida. People here are not afraid to snitch. Snitching is okay in Lee County, Florida. It's actually gained hate nationally by all the other criminal organizations and groups across the country because here in this county, snitching's okay. In fact, it's almost encouraged by some people here to snitch. So in a community where snitching is acceptable and doesn't seem to have any repercussions, you would think that the community here would snitch about all the drug houses. And they do. The problem is that the real gangsters in the Lee County area are known as Little Pakistan because they keep those big machines, the big tools. And so the word is that despite the fact that everybody's snitching on who the big dealers are in town, the cops are afraid. Yeah, they're actually afraid to go knocking on the big boys' doors because those guys are ruthless criminals who are not afraid to engage the law enforcement in battle. And so the rumor is in Fort Myers that, well, we know who the big guys are, but we're not going to go mess with them because they're dangerous. Everybody knows who the big fish are in Lee County, Florida. It's a county of snitching. It's known for snitching. The rappers are all getting, recently there was a rapper that was exposed for snitching. Snitching's okay here. Everybody snitches. Everybody knows that. In fact, the Lee County Sheriff's Office recently deleted the ability on Facebook for people to comment because people were commenting addresses and locations of the drug houses, but the Lee County Sheriff's Office doesn't want to go knock those houses down because they're afraid of the violence that's going to come with it. And it's the reason why if you go to Lee County Sheriff's Office, you can't see their comments. It's blocked because people were just commenting the addresses. And over again, people from communities were just putting the addresses like, hey, these are the dealers, come get them. But they deleted the ability on their Facebook page of people to post comments because people were posting comments and pictures showing where all the activity was going on, but that they weren't doing anything about it. And on the other hand, then they go on social media and post signs, we shut down this drug house. But the reality is that the people in Lee County, Florida are tired of snitching. These people have gone on a snitching marathon trying to denounce the people in their communities that are pushing the poison, but the sheriff's office is reluctant to go after these particular groups. And many feel it's because they're afraid that these are armed and dangerous individuals, and they would much rather go for safer targets. This is what's going on in Lee County, Florida. The truth that anybody that lives in North Fort Myers would know, that they denounce these houses continually, and law enforcement does nothing. But because they want to portray the opposite on social media, well, they have to block the ability of people to comment on their social media accounts. It's a mess in Lee County, Florida. Like I said, there wouldn't be enough time on today's video to elaborate on this issue. Number 7 is the Fort Myers Police Department. It's kind of a separate entity in the heart of Lee County. While it's not as horrendous as Lee County, they certainly have their problems. Fort Myers Police Department has made policies to, again, target overwhelmingly the Latino communities while overlooking the areas in the city that actually have the most crime. It's the same scenario as Lee County, but on a smaller scale. The Fort Myers Police Department also has the reputation of going out there and putting Hispanic officers in Hispanic neighborhoods, but of a different nationality, which has created somewhat of a rivalry between the Latino groups in Fort Myers. And now there's actually rivalries among Latinos in Fort Myers based off of nationality because the sheriff's office has been putting Cuban police officers to patrol Guatemalan neighborhoods, Guatemalan officers to patrol areas with a lot of Haitians, so forth, so forth. They continue to pin the community against each other by putting officers of certain nationalities in certain neighborhoods, knowing that they cover their backs by saying, oh, well, you know, it's a Hispanic officer patrolling a Hispanic neighborhood, so we assume he's going to do a good job. But these are actually groups that are somewhat antagonistic to each other. So they're saying, you know, we have Hispanic officers patrolling Hispanic neighborhoods, but in reality, they're aggravating the racial tensions among Latinos, and it's been a huge problem in the city of Fort Myers. This has been a practice that they've done for a while, and it's created a situation where in the past, these communities were mixed, and today they've even had to self-segregate by nationality in Fort Myers because of what the police department has done with the law enforcement, which is basically to turn the Latino groups all against each other, all while saying we have Latino officers patrolling Latino neighborhoods. It's made the situation difficult in Fort Myers, and the Fort Myers Police Department has also engaged in many of the practice that we've talked about with the Lee County Sheriff's Office, where they extort people based on their nationality, and it's just led to a complete crap crime hole. Now, Fort Myers Police Department is in charge of a city that has always had a crime problem, and over the recent years, it's gotten a lot worse, and it seems that they're mostly preoccupied with targeting Guatemalan and other Central American neighborhoods, while the areas that are actually filled with crime and drug addiction run rampant. In other words, police profiling. At this point, you would have to be out of your mind to live anywhere within Fort Myers city limits. The entire city has become a crap crime hole, and despite the fact that the metropolitan area as a whole is doing fairly well with growth and economy and all that, the city of Fort Myers continues to be a crime crap hole, and law enforcement here continues the practices of targeting communities based off their nationality. Over the last few years, gangs have scratched out sections of the city for themselves, and today a vast majority of Fort Myers city limits is nothing more than gang territory. Things here are really getting out of hand, and it seems like law enforcement isn't really making things better. In fact, it almost seems like the actions of law enforcement are helping to further segregate the city and further make the city a gang crap hole where even the neighborhood you live in is based around your nationality. And while the city of Fort Myers does have its own police force, it seems like many times they kind of overlap boundaries of Lee County. And I guess Lee County Sheriff's Office runs rampant through the city of Fort Myers, making the situation worse. So I don't know exactly what the arrangement is there, but it doesn't seem to be working very well. Today, most of Fort Myers is a crime crap hole. The law enforcement hasn't been able to put a cap on the crime that is afflicting this beautiful city. Number 8 is Bay County, Florida. This is the area around Panama City Beach. The issue in Bay County, Florida seems to stem from the following. Panama City Beach is close, the Florida Panhandle, close to Alabama, a state that's known for corruption. And while the beaches here are beautiful in this part of the state, it's also adjacent to Alabama. And many of the wealthy people from Alabama have moved to this part of Florida, and a lot of them are involved with local government. And it's stemmed a lot of corruption in businesses, and many of the cash grabs that they have going on up here, using law enforcement in many ways to kind of help them enrich themselves. I've also spent a lot of time in Panama City Beach. I love the area, but clearly law enforcement here is somewhat complicit in, whatever crime's going on. Seems like a very corrupt county in a lot of ways. I remember particularly on this day, I saw this person who knocked somebody else out. There were witnesses. Law enforcement came. Florida has this thing where we're a state of law and order. Well, this guy knocked another homeless guy out cold in front of my hotel. And later on, the cops came, but they let the guy go. Saw the guy on the street the next day, didn't get arrested. So it seems like even violence in front of witnesses and stuff doesn't seem like they're too interested in arresting people. But I'm not going to get too detailed and elaborate, but the county has a reputation for corruption. And I'll let the locals up there, I'm sure they're going to hit the comment section and elaborate a little bit more about what's going on in Bay County, Florida. But basically, a lot of the people here come from Alabama, a state that's endemically plagued with corruption. And they've infiltrated law enforcement, and there's a lot of police corruption here, benefiting people, a lot of money being made. Seems like many times if you're filing a police report in a specific area, namely around hotels and other tourist attractions, they don't want that on the radar. So it seems like they turn a blind eye to crime in certain places because it damages the businesses there. I'll let the locals elaborate, but Bay County, Florida definitely has a reputation for corruption. The locals here know that it's small town rule and that certain individuals get to do whatever they want. Many people that live here have told me when they have run into legal cases and they've had to go up against the system, that mug is rigged. And it's rigged in favor of certain people, and you have absolutely no chance of winning against them. So corruption here is a problem, and many people even know this to the degree where they won't move to this part of Florida because they're afraid of the corruption. People don't really talk about this a lot, but one of the reasons why people don't move too much to the Florida Panhandle is because of corruption. People are afraid that if they have a court case or they have a legal dispute with somebody, that there's so much nepotism up there and there's so much small town rule that you basically don't have any rights if you're fighting against the wrong people. It's a completely corrupt system, and this is one of the reasons why people with money don't move to the Florida Panhandle. They move to the southern part of the state where law and order is a little bit more prevalent and small town rule is a little bit less. And again, the purpose of today's video is to educate people that are moving to Florida. And you may have wondered why, if the Florida Panhandle is so beautiful, people are afraid to move up there. Police corruption and corruption in general is part of the reason. They basically got this part of the state in a chokehold where they do whatever they want, and anybody that stands against them is sure to lose. Many people are looking to get business licenses and other county-related issues and ordinances and licenses or permits, whatever they're trying to do, run into this problem all the time. They literally got this place rigged. Even to the point where if you're trying to call fire department or law enforcement and you give them certain addresses, areas of tourism or specific districts, they've been known to hang up or simply just not answer the phone calls or tell you some crazy story or transfer you to somebody and nothing ever gets done, or very long police wait times. In other words, it's kind of like a little mob up here. Number 9 is Volusia County. This is the area around Daytona Beach. Now, this area continues to have the same trend as all the counties we've talked about in the northeast corner of Florida. Basically, police profiling and, of course, lack of due process with dealing with people that are more vulnerable in the community. It seems like the law here thinks they can do whatever they want, and many times they're working outside of due process. I'm not going to elaborate too much on Volusia County because it's just the same general trend of Brevard County, Melbourne, St. Johns County. It's that same area. They face the same problems. African Americans in particular have a difficult time in this county, even when they're just trying to enjoy themselves. That's Volusia County for you, and of course it belongs on today's list. Talking to the homeless people here, they have a lot of concerns with law enforcement working outside of due process, and even more, law enforcement actually hurting the homeless people and doing things that are a little bit more questionable. And of course, these are marginalized communities that don't really have the ability to speak for themselves. Law enforcement abuses that power. It's a known issue in this county. This county has also started to crack down on squatted trucks, which is kind of a culture here in Florida, and a lot of people feel that, again, it's just a type of profiling to keep out the type of people they don't want. And this has been a problem with Daytona in that, people with squatted trucks and motorcycle gangs and stuff frequent this area. And it seems that law enforcement wants the county to have a more professional tourist look. They want to cater to a different type of tourist, but unfortunately Daytona Beach attracts garbage people, and they get garbage crowds and garbage practices, and that's the type of people that go to Daytona Beach. Unfortunately for them, they don't get the same classy tourists as they do in Naples. Many tourists have found recently that they're not the type of tourist that Daytona Beach would like to see. It's a trashy destination. It should attract trashy people. Number 10 is Polk County, Florida. I'm not going to be too harsh on Polk County, Florida, but the issue here is that on social media, they want to portray like Polk County is one of the greatest places to live in the state, and it's really on the bottom half. It's not the worst, but it's definitely not in the top half of places. In fact, Polk County, Florida is the largest center of urban poverty in the state of Florida, and as we know, gangs are out of control in Polk County. It really doesn't have any merit to brag as much as it does, and therefore it's misleading. So the reason that Polk County made today's list is because of misinformation, misleading the public, telling people this is a great place to live. It's a crime-infested, poor county. It's not that great. It doesn't even have beaches. The notion that they have the guts to go out there and portray to the whole country that they're the greatest county on earth and that people here would never break the law. It's interesting to see that as soon as we entered Polk County, the first thing you see is people breaking the law. It isn't this paradise of crime and law and order. No, dude, this is actually a pretty crappy place to live in Florida. But the public believes everything they hear on social media because of who it's coming from and the political agenda that comes behind it, and they believe it. But it's very misleading. Polk County, Florida is actually not that safe. And while, they don't have the tremendously horrendous record of human rights violations that some of these other counties do, they do have a few problems. In particular, I've noted that some of the infamous cases that we've heard on social media, I've gone to the ground and talked to people involved in these cases, and it seems that law enforcement distorts the details to make them sound more theatrical for the public. As you can see on this country road, people have been doing burnouts out here, and this is just a small rural community. Again, they don't have the tremendous record of human rights violations and lack of due process you have in other counties, but I've heard a few instances from people. Just like most of these counties in Florida, they have a reputation of lack of due process when dealing with people like the homeless who are more vulnerable and have less rights than other people, apparently. In Polk County, a lot of the homeless people tell me that they're actually afraid of being homeless in Polk County because, the way they're treated, with the lack of due process. So it's actually known in the state of Florida that if you're homeless, don't end up in Polk County because of this situation. So again, when you treat the most vulnerable and weak people in your society as lesser and have less rights for them than for other people, it puts a question mark on how you're doing things. So Polk County mostly made this list not because of how bad they are, but because they're trying to paint a narrative that doesn't accurately depict the real situation on the county. It also seems that gang activity in this particular county is above normal for Florida. There's a lot of gang activity, and that doesn't match the narrative, again, that's being put out there. So while we love these individual people, we love their social media antics, and we watch their news conferences, it's very misleading to the general public, and a lot of people have actually started to move to this county only to find out after moving there that it's a gang-infested crap hole and the economical opportunities here are extraordinarily limited. This is a really poor county. Again, it's the poorest large urban center in Florida, but again, misinformation makes them enter today's list. If they could only depict the reality of what's going on in this county, those people would have second thoughts about moving here. A lot of people have moved to this county believing the rhetoric and the agendas that are being pushed about the county, but the crime analytics simply don't check out. And it's not that it's absolutely the worst in Florida. Polk County really isn't the worst in Florida. But again, paint a realistic narrative to people, because people are being misinformed. And I have read into people who've moved to this county only later to find out that it was all a lie. And it is. If you see my Polk County videos, you can tell that crime really is rampant in this part of the state, and gang activity is serious. In fact, I recently did a video in Lakeland, Florida, and I took the video down because there were so many gang members engaging in, their stuff, that I figured, you know what, these people are going to throw a fit about my video, and I don't want to have problems with people on the streets over my videos. But if you remember my last Lakeland video, I uploaded, and then after uploading it, I took it right down because there was clear gang activity going on in the video, and I don't want these people to say that I'm uploading them committing crimes to the internet. But literally, just driving around their county, you can run into gang activity. It's prevalent, it's common, and again, a very misleading narrative being put in social media that doesn't accurately match what's going on in this county. Those are the top 10 worst police departments in the state of Florida, and the reasons why they made today's list. I didn't really have to hesitate too much on today's list. This is pretty straightforward, and anybody familiar with Florida knows that my depiction is accurate. I'm just giving you this information raw, so if you're visiting the state of Florida or you're moving to the state of Florida, you better understand the problems that we're facing. And again, nobody hates a bad cop more than a good cop. The purpose of today's video is not to discredit law enforcement. We appreciate their effort and the work that they do, and we wouldn't want to live in a society without them. But nothing is perfect, and these particular counties have things, and municipalities have issues that they need to work out so their communities can be better places. Many times it seems that when there's a problem that's obvious and out of control, it's because people are focusing not on what the community needs, but on the narrative that they want to push. I think if these agencies focused on what the communities actually needed and not on the narrative that they're trying to push, then perhaps their community would be better places. In the case of Florida, many of these law enforcement agencies have gone on complete social media agendas to promote their counties, to get people to move to these places, telling them that these are safe and great places to live. However, the safest and best counties in Florida seldomly engage in this type of crappery. And it's possible that many of these individuals are just trying to promote their own political careers. They're trying to promote themselves, they're trying to postulate themselves, but the counties that they're bouncing in aren't the worst counties. They got to find a better trampoline to bounce on, because if your trampoline has a hole in it, you're not going to get too far. And that's really the issue with these individuals. It seems that they're really focused on trying to promote their own ideologies, trying to get themselves glory so that they can postulate themselves politically through the work they're doing in their counties. However, the facts state clear that these are not the counties you should be bragging about. In fact, it seems that some of the worst counties in Florida seem to have the biggest, loudest spokespersons, when in reality, the counties that are the safest, you rarely hear from those people. They're not busy on social media. They're busy doing their jobs.